What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and today we're going to get into my top waiver wire ads for week 7 of the fantasy football season. I feel like just yesterday I hopped on the mic for week 1 of these. Now we're going to get into our top 5 must-own running backs and then our top 5 must-own pass catchers, so wide receivers and tight ends, all under 50% owned on ESPN. Now, these are just going to be rough estimates of, players that I'd be grabbing here and there, stashing, using Fab for. If you want to know my individual Fab bids for each and every single one of these players, that's going to be on the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. I come out every week with a nice little exclusive article where I go over every single player, who I'm adding, how much am I bidding. Now, without further ado, let's stop rambling. Let's get into this fantasy football video. Let's go.
Thirsty, trying to choose. I know I'm critical.
Now, before we get into our first running back on this list, make sure you go down below, subscribe, and leave a like. It helps us out a ton in the algorithm. And I think that we only have like maybe 25% of our viewers are actually subscribed. So make sure you go down below, hit the subscribe button. It puts all of these videos in your subscription feed. It recommends them more often. So it would help out your boy a ton if you did that. Now, our first running back on the slate today, a priority ad, so somebody I would bid 15% or more of my Fab budget on, is JD Mckissic. And that's because Antonio Gibson, my boy, your boy, has a shin fracture, right? And I'm no doctor. I don't know what that means, but he's hobbled. He doesn't look like himself. He's not playing a ton of snaps. I think he left the game like 1,000,000 times on Sunday. And this makes Mckissic a huge ad for 2 reasons. Because, one, if Mckissic misses any time, he's the clear handcuff. He'll get locked and loaded into that role. And the second is because even if Gibson is still healthy enough to play, in this role where Mckissic kind of, picks up the slack, he's been really good. In 2020, Antonio Gibson got hurt in week 13. He misses week 14 and week 15, and then he plays hurt. Last year, in week 16 through 17, Gibson played 30 to 60% of the snaps, and he was clearly still hurt after missing that time, kind of hobbling through the injury. And Mckissic averaged 15.6 PPR points per game during that stretch, and then from weeks 13 through 17. So that's the entirety of the injury. So whether he was playing, whether he wasn't playing, he was pretty much either not playing or he was playing on a limited basis. Mckissic was the RB8 during that stretch. So no matter what, if Gibson is missing time or if he's just, playing hurt, Mckissic gets a huge bump from any kind of injury. Then we have D'Ernest Johnson, running back for the Cleveland Browns. Kareem Hunt suffered a calf injury on Sunday. Hopefully it's not an Achilles injury. Nick Chubb is also hurt. He's been dealing with a calf injury as well. They play on Thursday Night Football. So Kareem Hunt's definitely not playing. I think it's too quick of a turnaround for Nick Chubb to play. So D'Ernest Johnson is that next guy as that hot, waiver wire ad. He's probably going to be a priority ad for me, 15% plus of your Fab budget. He will give you probably a spot start. I imagine that Nick Chubb comes back for week 8. I don't know if the Cleveland Browns have a bye during that time, but D'Ernest Johnson's the guy for this week. I know a lot of people are going to talk about Demetric Felton, and he's very interesting. I liked him as a prospect coming out, but he's only lined up as a running back twice this year. He's more of, a wide receiver, gadgety type guy. I expect him to be a third down back, change of pace type of guy to D'Ernest Johnson, but Johnson will be the workhorse if Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb do miss time at the same time, which then brings us to a gang of running backs. We're getting into our ads here. I wouldn't do any kind of, waiver wire Fab bid over like 10% on these, but I'm just going to list the Ravens running backs, right? So any Baltimore running back is an interesting stash at this point for me. I thought Tyson Williams is the best of the bunch between, they have Le'Veon Bell, Tyson Williams, Latavius Murray, Devontae Freeman, but he was healthy scratched, right? So this brings us into a spot where they rolled out Le'Veon Bell, Latavius Murray, and Freeman. They all saw between 8 and 9 carries and a touchdown. Bell looked at the most watched. I think he had like 17 yards, 18 yards on his 8 carries. But Latavius and Freeman looked fine. I think that Latavius Murray and Freeman should be rostered probably everywhere because in this situation with the Ravens, they run the ball a lot still, right? So we've been talking about how they're passing the ball more than they did last year. They're still, like top 10 to 15 in running the ball. So they have the rushing volume, but they also have the efficiency, right? So this is an offense that's going to score a lot of points. And when you have Lamar Jackson, that frees up a lot of holes because they got to respect Lamar Jackson on those read options, the zone reads. And it pretty much frees up, 2 to 3 guys in the box that have to account for Lamar Jackson. That's why a lot of these guys like Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins over the years, even when you plug in a random guy like Tyson Williams, they'll average over 5 yards per carry because Lamar Jackson just does that to a defense. Then we're going to talk about another backfield, and that's the Seahawks running backs, right? So DJ Dallas, Rashod Penny, and this is purely a stash because you're pretty much handcuffing a handcuff. We have Alex Collins, who saw 20 touches last night. So that was Sunday night. It's Monday night tonight. You guys will see this Tuesday morning. But Alex Collins handled 20 touches. He left the game early with an injury. And that opens the door for Deejay Dallas, right? So Deejay Dallas is the one that's been healthy. He had 4 for 17 on the ground, not great, but 5 catches and 33 yards through the air. He's been kind of that passing down back. Now, I will say Rashod Penny kind of has a little bit more upside. I liked him a lot as a prospect, but we're now talking like year 3 of the Rashod Penny experience, year 4, year 5, where nothing has really happened for him. So, I mean, he comes off IR and maybe he becomes interesting over at Deejay Dallas, but I think that they're both interesting ads for that spot where if something was to happen to Alex Collins, we could have one of these guys slot in right away. Then our last running back is a guy we've been talking about, the last like 2-3 weeks is Rhamondre Stevenson. I loved him as a prospect, round 4 guy out of Oklahoma. He can do everything. He's explosive. He can catch passes. He can pass block. He can do stuff on the goal line, between the 20s guy. He is a, Swiss Army knife at running back. I kind of comped him to, like a Rex Burkhead in like a Patriot system. He could be like a juiced up Rex Burkhead. He's now getting goal line touches. He scored a touchdown. He's getting passing down work. He like caught a big wheel route. Now I know Damian Harris is dealing with a rib injury, so that kind of explains why Rhamondre got any work on Sunday, but that also means that Damian Harris could get hurt and open the door for Rhamondre Stevenson. So I think if Damian Harris was to go down, that'd be huge for Rhamondre because that opens up, a role for him that's not as, as one-dimensional as a Damian Harris's role, which is just between the 20s and the goal line. He gets no passing down work. I think Rhamondre would actually get probably almost the same amount of between the 20s, carries, goal line stuff, and then he'd also get passing down work over guys like Brandon Bolden and JJ Taylor. Now we're going to flip over to the pass catchers. We're going to talk about Rashod Bateman. He is my number 1 ad this week. We've been talking about him each of the last like 2, 3, 4 weeks, and he's perfect because we want these rookie wide receivers because they have a lot of upside, right? So we have guys like Chase Claypool, Brandon Ayuk, AJ Brown his rookie year, Chase Claypool. A lot of these rookie wide receivers end up being the league winners. It doesn't happen right away. Not all these guys are Justin Jefferson. Not all these guys are Jamar Chase. Happens on the back half of the season. I think Rashod Bateman is a candidate for that because he's still, that black box prospect. The same thing with Kadarius Toney, 3-4 weeks ago. He's this black box prospect. Think whatever you want about him pre-draft. He is an unknown entity in the NFL. We haven't seen it yet, so he has a multitude range of outcomes, a lot of variance in his profile. Same thing with Rashod Bateman. And his first game was really promising. He only had 4 catches for 29 yards. But when you peel the onion back a little bit, the layers back a little bit, you look at his usage, it looked pretty good. He was tied for first on the team with a 24% target share. He had a 27% target per route run, which is really, really good. That, last year you had guys like Claypool lead the rookie class with like a 23%. Now, that's not going to be sustainable, 27% targets per route run over the entirety of a season. But it's still in a range where in his first ever game as a pro, that's really impressive. Then we're going to rattle off the rest of these pass catchers. We got Darnell Mooney first up, and he's had a touchdown or 100 yards in 2 of 3 games, but I would push back on him being, like this crazy breakout candidate because he's looked good, but the Chicago offense only had 174 passing yards on Sunday. With Justin Fields, they still haven't really gotten things to click to the point where they're, operating as a, NFL caliber passing offense. You would typically want that like in the 225 plus range at minimum. The volume's so bad that Allen Robinson's no longer QB proof, even though he's done it with Blake Bortles and Mitch Trubisky, which then brings us to Tim Patrick. And Tim Patrick's a guy that I've been really reluctant to even respect this year, but you have to. He now has 11 or more 0.5 PPR points in 5 of his last 6 games. He's been, in every week, like really if you just played him as your wide receiver 2, you probably are fine to this point. He is this wide receiver 3-ish kind of guy. Now we want a little bit more upside from our wide receivers. When you're getting them off the bench or off the waivers, what he's doing is pretty much fine. I think that he's going to be, a wide receiver 3-ish type flex play until Judy returns, which then brings us to more, of the veterans. Like Mooney and Tim Patrick are a little bit younger, a little bit more upside. But then we have T.Y. Hilton, who had 4 catches for 80 yards in his first game back from injury. And I guess he's an interesting, flex type guy. Maybe he ages like a Larry Fitzgerald, where I want to say there was a stretch where Larry Fitzgerald had maybe only 800 yards receiving. And then when he hit 32, 33, he kind of found like a late career resurgence. There's a possibility for T.Y. Hilton to have that. There's also a possibility for A.J. Green to have that, right? So A.J. Green scored a touchdown yesterday. He actually looked, decent. I think that he led the team, or no, he was second behind Christian Kirk with 6 targets. He's playable here and there. He doesn't look to be completely washed. I don't think that he is, obviously he's not prime AJ Green, but he's not, skin and bones like I thought. I thought that he was going to be, kind of like we saw Alshon Jeffrey in 2020, which then brings us to our 1 tight end on the list, Ricky Seals-Jones. If you have nobody at tight end, feel free to make a little bit of a fab bid on this guy, especially in tight end premium like an FFPC league. And as long as Logan Thomas is gone, Ricky Seals-Jones is a locked in, back end wide receiver or tight end 1. He played all of the snaps, 100% of the team snaps. He had 4 catches for 58 yards and a touchdown. I want to say the only touchdown of the day from the offense. So he looked really good. He's a fine, one of those guys you can stream while Logan Thomas is hurt. But that's going to do it for us today, fellas. It is 8:02 p.m., so the game's about to kick off in like 10 minutes. I'm going to go upstairs, eat dinner. I hope you guys had a great day. Hope you guys had a great time enjoying this video. Now, with all that being said, my waiver wire, article, fab guide, all that good stuff will be down below in the description. It'll be down below in the comments on Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. As always, I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.